Ricky, how are we?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. You're the first one in the new podcast studio.
Excellent.
We used to use an outsourced one in Glasgow City Centre, but we were doing that much of them. We thought set it up ourselves, but Jesus, it took a lot more than I thought to set it to set it up. So you are founder of Commsworld. For anyone who doesn't know, Commsworld is a leading network business in the UK. Very disruptive. You've grown like you stink over the last 5 years. We're going to come on to that. It's been a real labour of love. I was looking on your LinkedIn the other night. It's 30 odd years. But we'll come back to that. When I get somebody like yourself on, Ricky, I'm always more interested in the journey about how you got to where you were going. So was it always telecoms? Were you a young lad running about with network cables, or where did it start?
I mean, as a kid, when I left school, I had 5 O grades. I was going to be a joiner or an electrician or a welder or something like that.
Aye.
Right. I mean, it was basically, you're put in a machine, you can go get this job, and you went to a careers office and they gave you jobs to go. And I went for 5 interviews, and it was electrician, joiner, and telecoms. And I didn't have a phone in the house. I didn't know anybody had a phone in the house. And where I stayed in Green Dykes, the phones were all smashed up in the street. So telecoms was a wee bit alien in a strange way, but it was interesting.
What year was this?
78.
78.
So it looked interesting. I thought, telecoms. And it was just, I thought, that's probably quite a good job to have. It was no more complicated than that.
What a difference in a remarkable space of time, going from having no phones in your house to everyone walking about with a phone plastered in their pocket constantly. It's incredible, isn't it? The speed
it's phenomenal. I mean, from when I was a kid, 16-year-old, I'd say that the world was black and white back then.
Aye.
And all of a sudden, colour came along.
Do you think it was better?
Well, it depends. I mean, there is a balance, to be perfectly honest, there's a balance, because clearly what you did then is you had very close contacts with people. You engaged more. Now it's distant, but you can engage with a lot more people. So there's a balance on, is it better or not?
Aye, no.
It is better, clearly.
Aye, it is clearly, but there's downsides that we're struggling with. And I feel sorry for all of the kids growing up, see all that always on social media, looking at what everyone's got, the pressures on them. If you were having a hard time at school when we were younger, at least you could go home and hide for it until the weekend was over. But young folk now, they can't do that, can they? They're always plugged in.
Well, I mean, I've explained to my kids that when I was young, all you knew was what your neighbours told you and what you seen on the news. And you have to remember there was no colour TVs had just come out. And there was little TV then. There was a couple of channels and the news came on now and again. And in the main, you weren't really that interested in the telly. You were out playing football and doing physical things.
Right.
So all you knew and all you learned was what people told you, or you read in the Sunday Post. Do you know what I mean? That was it. Now, you can look at anything in the world in 2 seconds.
Aye.
So it's a different world.
And you've got to decide if it's true or not. That's the other thing, isn't it?
Correct, yeah.
So how did Commsworld come about?
Well, I mean, I worked at what was GEC Reliance, so they were in Edinburgh and Glasgow. I worked there. I left there and went to work for a company called Lander Alarms, which is a wee alarm company. I was an engineer. And I literally just got jobs to do. You know what I mean? You didn't have to think. Every day you got given jobs. When you finished your job, you got another job. And I'd worked down the docks, SEI, all these places, the pipe course, and just enjoyed it. Just working away on telecoms and associated stuff. And then I bumped into Dave McKenzie. Now, Dave's well known in basketball. Dave's one of Scotland's greatest ever basketball players.
Was he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Dave's the captain. In fact, you'll love this. Yeah. Dave's the captain of the over 60s Great Britain basketball team. There you go. He's still so fit. Honestly, it's incredible. But I bumped into Dave, and I just started chatting to him. And Dave was a Xerox salesman. So he was completely reversed from what I was. But Dave told me that he was going to join the Murray International Group and start up a telecoms company. And I said to Dave, what do you know about telecoms? And he said, absolutely nothing, right? And Dave's way. And I need to find someone that knows, I need to get an engineer, Ricky. And I said, I'm an engineer. Telecom. He said, I didn't know that. So to cut a long story short, me and Dave joined what was the Dial Group, a Murray International company. It was best known as Russell Office Systems, through in the West. And the Murray Group bought Russell Office Systems, blah, blah. And they created this group. Mainly photocopiers, but they created these seed businesses, of which telecoms was one. So I worked there for, up to 94, 88, and I loved it. And I went from an engineer getting work to do every day into what I call an entrepreneurial circus. I'd never met salespeople before, like at all.
It's an eye-opener, isn't it?
My God. And it was so funny, so exciting, and I really liked it. And some of the characters, you know, in the Russell group and the Dial group, some people I still have friends today, you know. So I went from this engineering guy who didn't say anything, didn't engage with anyone, and just got jobs to do every day, to me and Dave going out, knocking on doors, selling stuff. We would sell stuff, and I would literally go the next day and install it. So guys would go, "Well, you know, in here the other day they're selling us stuff." Yeah, I'm fitting it, you know. So
and what was it you were selling at that time?
Telephone systems.
Just telephones?
Perhaps just a single telephone system. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then in '94, the Dial group got sold off, and me and Dave decided to go ourselves and open Commsworld, which is what we done in '94.
And was that did you start off with Mitel or kind of telephone systems? Or?
It was originally Securicor, Ferrante, Samsung, we telephone systems. And then it was Avaya, and Alcatel, and then Mitel. So what we were doing is looking at all the systems. Now, obviously, digital was starting to arrive. Because again, when we started in '94, there was no internet, as in zero. No, you can't even imagine that, but no internet. There was mobile phones were just arriving. So Richard Emanuel with DX Communications, we spoke at Richard at length actually, because we actually thought about working in with Richard and creating something with him, then decided to go ourselves. But mobiles were just starting to come along. There was zero internet, and it was analog lines. So we were selling digital systems onto analog lines, but the systems that we're selling were packed with features, whereas the old systems were basic. So we started building relationships. Still got the same customers back then, Eastern Western Motor Group and others,
still
for 30 odd years.
Yeah. Did you build it organically, or did you take money in? Or
what we did is we got if I go like this, we got Rob and Steele. So Rob and Steele, right? That's what we used to call him, Rob and Steele. Rob and Steele was the FD in Dial Group, and we asked Robin to help us and create a business plan for us. And we said to Robin, "We'll pay you X if we get funding. If we don't get funding, we can't pay you anything, you know." And Robin is a really good guy. Robin says, "Fine, come on, I'll help you." So what Robin did is he said, "You guys are going to need £50,000 or you'll fail. Like, you must have 50 grand, I'm telling you. We're bringing a couple of sales guys with us." So getting money back then was really complex. It was just banks. It wasn't like today where you've got all these angels investors, of which, lo and behold, I'm one now. But it was quite difficult to get money. So we had to get money through social enterprise, banks, things like this. We eventually got 50,000, and that kicked us off down the road.
Just a good old-fashioned bank loan?
Bank loans, bank loans, a social enterprise, a local social enterprise in Craigmore called Create today, Craigmore Opportunities Trust back then. They gave us money, and a couple of private guys put money in, base money, nothing, just take the money back in just to help us. So that's how we started off in '94.
It's normally the first 4 or 5 years of the business is the toughest when you're trying to get it off the ground, and it's normally a real struggle. Well,
most businesses collapse after a few years, the vast majority. And I understand why. I mean, it's clearly obvious, when I look back.
You're meeting up as you're going along as well, aren't
you?
Yeah. Aye. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, we were fortunate because we had built relationships, we had built a reputation, we had some good customers, and people that we had built through Dial and through the years, people that kind of trusted us. And the telecoms back then was really bad, let's be honest. The systems and the service that we're getting from the big conglomerates was pretty basic and pretty poor and didn't really do much to help them. So once you got someone willing to listen to you, you could 100% guarantee you improve what they do.
Yeah.
Fact. And so that's kind of how it worked.
Right, okay. And because Dave left the business, didn't
he? Dave left in 2007.
2007, so that's still quite a time he was there, 10 years.
Yeah, he was there a long time. He left for personal things, it's like family issues and whatever. And it's funny because, I mean, I love Dave, even to this day. He's been the single biggest inspiration to me by a long way. And he's a great guy. But he just decided, I'm out of this, So I had to raise money at that time to buy Dave out.
To buy him out.
Yeah.
It's good to know you're still friends. When I thought Dave left, you always assume that there's a fallout or something, don't you? When two people start a business, it's very rare that both stay in it for the longevity.
I know. It's funny because me and Dave were tied at the hip, literally. I mean, we were like one. And when he left, I was quite upset. And in a strange way, obviously, when he left, and then a few years, we left right before 2007, right before the big, 2008 financial crash. Yeah. So at the time, I thought, he's timed it well, But as time went on, and we started to win really, really big things, and obviously we had great success, it never leaves my head that I wish he was still there.
For the journey.
Yeah. But, I mean, I've spoke to Dave about that. Dave's view is, if he had been there, that wouldn't have happened, because we'd have done things slightly differently. Aye. Which is probably fair.
Yeah. One small inconsequential decision changed your life.
On a different road, so that's life,
Yeah. So then, over the years, you've grown and went across different kind of product ranges. When did you decide to get into like the more, as we know it now, the wide area network, the telecom side?
It goes back to what Dave told me. I mean, Dave used to go on about SpinFab, a sales technique he got taught at Xerox. And what Dave said is SpinFab: situation, problem, implication, need, feature, advantage, benefit. So what's the situation? Ask your customers what's wrong, what's causing them a problem, what keeps them up at night. Find a solution to that, and you'll have a customer for life, right? And that's how my mind always worked. So if you remember when the internet exploded, right? Mm-hmm. If you take, for example, the motor groups, so Eastern, Western, Parks, all these motor groups, People's Ford, all these guys, they became so reliant on the internet that they couldn't put a car out without the manufacturer signing it off via the internet. So if their internet went down, they're in trouble.
Can't trade.
Right. So the big conglomerates were delivering Ethernet over copper that was hundreds of years old, knowing that 20% or so would fail. Because I went around with Steve Langwood, which maybe touch on, talking to the highest directors we could get, Vodafone, BT and others, Talk, all these kind of companies. And they all said the same thing, that Ethernet over copper is poor, and invariably 15-20% will fail. So what we had was customers at their wits' end, worried about their business going to the wall because the internet was so poor. And you only had one route to go, which was BT primarily. Even if you went to Virgin and others, it was copper coax based, and invariably it linked into BTs. So I realised very quickly, we need to have, and we had to sell their product. Therefore, we'd get the blame, even though it had nothing to do with us. And I quickly realised, if we could solve that problem, what a business would have. Now, I was told, yeah, Ricky, but Scottish Telecom thus tried that, spent zillions and went to the wall. It's £100 a metre to put fibre in the ground. Ricky, you guys couldn't put 100 metres. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's no logical, But I kept thinking, no, hang on a minute, there must be a way. And fortunately, we found a way.
Was that fluency? Was that?
Well, yes.
It
was Charlie in the bottom. I mean, Charlie is phenomenal, as you know.
Aye.
He is an absolute technology nut on networks. He'll be up there with the best network guys in the world, literally.
He's one of the only guys I've walked the street with, and he's looking at his feet all the time because he wants to read manhole covers.
He goes on holiday.
What are you doing, Charlie?
He goes on holiday to look at networks and things, Well, yes, so what I thought is, well, we've got lots of customers with networks, but they're not our networks, and we're getting pelters. And if this continues, we'll go to the wall, right? I mean, I was talking to big companies who say, we're going to go to the wall because of this, because of you. Yeah. And I'd say, but it's not because of us, it's the infrastructure. It's like going to a pub and saying the tenants is poor and shouting to the barman. He's like, I'm no tenants. Yeah. And I can't bring another beer because it's only tenants. Do you know what I mean? So I quickly realised that we needed to have that knowledge, and Charlie has phenomenal knowledge. So if we got Charlie in, we could improve, put our own things on the end of BT's net, try to at least improve that a bit.
So did he have fluency? Was that his business at
the
time?
Yeah, just a startup. Uh-huh. And Charlie was just a startup.
How did you meet him?
What I did was I went round the industry asking for network nuts.
Right. Well, you found one. Uh-huh.
I kept saying, because I thought, we've got loads of guys that are really techy, like clever guys, but they were not core network guys, And everybody pointed at Charlie. And I went to see Charlie, and Charlie said to me, I said, you know who Commsworld are? You're an old-fashioned telco with no create street cred in my space. I was like, all right, he went, I don't mean to offend you. I says, you're not, and you're right. I'm right. I says, yeah, right. But we could sort that together. You know? Mm-hmm. So Charlie coming in was very, very important. Yeah. Particularly for later on.
Yeah, for building up the networks.
Yeah. And Charlie insisted we brought some guys in. So we brought in Nick.
Yep.
Right, who is like, so Charlie's built a team that are just phenomenal. They'll stand up against anybody in the world. They're really.
That was quite a punt at the time, but wasn't it? It was quite a.
It was a big punt, and it was a thing that most people were against. Most of my board and that weren't keen on it, which at the time, at the time I didn't really care, to be blunt. But when I look back, I understand. You know, if I'd been in their shoes, I probably would have said the same.
So why didn't you care what they were saying? Did you just believe in it?
Well, what I did was, when I obviously had cancer, when I came back from the cancer in 2007, and Dave was going to leave in 2006, and he said, "I'm not leaving till you're back in the office." I'm
so when did the cancer? When did you find out about it?
I was diagnosed in January 2006.
2006.
Dave was leaving, like within months. He was going to be leaving. So he came to my house and said, "Until you're back in the office, I'm not leaving."
And how did it start? Sore throat?
Just a wee lump in my neck. A wee lump in my neck.
Aye.
I didn't think, to be honest, I didn't think anything. And then it got a bit worse and worse, and eventually it's, hang on a minute, there's something wrong here. You know? So I went in very quickly. It was New Year. I went in, and very quickly they said, "You've got cancer, and if you don't get treatment, you'll die within 6 months." 6 months? And I was like, what? You will die? And I said, what if I get treatment? Like, what? Well, we don't know. And I'm like, no, hang on. I said, my wife was saying, "Ricky, leave it." I said, "No, I need to understand." So I said to the guy, "Look, you need to tell me the truth." He says, "At this stage, we don't know. That is the truth." And I said to him, "But in your experience, like you must have done this, in your experience, what's the odds of me living?" And he said 50-50 with the right treatment under the right conditions. But I can't tell you that until we're further down the line.
Until they do it.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that do to your head, hearing that 50-50, we're going to roll a dice here?
What's strange, isn't it? Aye. Really strange. And also you're sitting, I was sitting with the consultants all sitting opposite me, with their backs to me, talking about how they could maybe save my life. And I'm sitting in the background like, I'm here.
Aye.
Hello?
Aye.
We should do this. Another one saying, no, we can't operate first. This could happen. And your head just gets scrambled. But my head just got scrambled. I mean,
what age were you when that?
44.
44,
yeah,
Jesus.
So it's 19 years ago this month.
Aye.
So I mean, lo and behold, obviously.
So you'd have had a young family then, and your kids would have been young?
My kids were 10 and 16.
Aye.
Yeah, so, but anyway, when I came back, that's the point, when I came back, I was less risk averse, because Dave was always the pushy one. I was always the good cop, bad cop. I was always the good guy in the background, kind of slowing things down, not wanting to take risks. That was typically my nature. And when I came back, I thought, stuff it. Honestly, I thought, stuff it. Like, we need to go for this. Because I realised that to scale a small business in Scotland is really, really difficult, because 99% of businesses have less than 40 people. Less than 50 people, sorry. So you need to set, and there's 360,000 commercial businesses. So you need to sell a lot of widgets to a lot of people, a lot of businesses to scale a business. Yeah. Unless you do artificially buying lots of wee companies, bolting it together and saying, we've got a big company now. Which wasn't I didn't know what to do that.
There seems to be a glass ceiling in Scotland when it comes to technology companies. It's around about that £9-10 million mark. If you are only operating in Scotland, companies seem to bounce off that, then dwindle away, don't they?
Well, we'll do over 40 million.
Yeah.
When I go back to when Dave was there, we were doing six, something like that, and we were probably the biggest and best in our space. So Scotland's not the best one in the world. I was told that if you took Commsworld, dropped it into Manchester, right, we'd be doing 10 times the business. Yeah, just in Manchester area. If you replicate what we did, you'd be doing 10 times.
I think a lot of people in Scotland forget that. Obviously, we've got that whopping great big massive data centre, which was always too big for Scotland in terms of as it stood just now. Luckily, AI's came along and that's changing, and we'll fill that plus another 3 or 4 of them probably. But it's a real eye opener when you go down to Birmingham and London and Manchester, how small Scotland is.
I know, and it's strange because I'm like most people passionately Scottish.
Absolutely.
And I find it frustrating. I look and I'm told Tesco's the biggest employer in Scotland. Like, really?
That's grim, isn't it?
Like, really?
Yeah.
What industries? I mean, I talk to people. Obviously, I'm going on holiday. I'll travel a lot with my wife. And you talk to other countries and people talk to you. And Scotland's very small, you know, from a business point of view, really small. And just over the border in England, 10 times bigger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now Commsworld, we're winning more and more in England because we could hit that glass ceiling in Scotland.
It's amazing when you travel these industries, but you normally come across a Scottish person at a senior level.
Yes, everywhere.
Yeah.
That honestly never fails.
And they need to leave to make their money.
But they need to, this is the point, they need to actually leave to grow. So John Bennett, who was the Rangers, who was the Rangers chairman, John invested along with Ian Blackford.
Mm-hmm.
They invested in us back in 2005. And John said to me, Ricky, I had to go to England.
Aye.
Scotland's not big enough. I had to go to England. So my kids are kind of English now, you know. But to do the things I wanted to do and to reach the scale, I had to move, you know. And you know, he's the director for European Equities in Henderson. And I said, so why can't you do it in Scotland? He says, there's no risk capital in Scotland. Nobody's really investing. Nobody's really interested, Ricky. You know, we're the best one in the world. Mm-hmm. And he's bloody chairman of Rangers, or it was. Yeah. Obviously, he stepped down for health reasons recently.
And do you still see that just now? And obviously you do a bit of angel investing. Do you see that in terms of trying to put money in these small businesses? Do they have the ambition or...
Well, yeah. I mean, if I talk,
are they Scottish?
Well, that's the point. If I talk to like LDC who invested in us, who I must add have been phenomenal. That's really good. And I speak to the guys, and they look at, you know, minimum 10 million turnover, 1 million EBITDA, growing at 20% per year. And I ask how many Scottish companies is there? Why? Mm-hmm. So they call Scotland like North of England, yes. From a business perspective, and they're right. You know, from their point of view, there's not that many to invest in, which is frustrating, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's something more to it than just our size? We live in we've got a small population that's spread out, so we've got a million spread across the central belt, then everywhere else is potted about the country, and in between that you have hills and sheep. Do you think it's a size issue? Well,
we've got some of the best universities in the world, and I was told before, you know, the biggest export we've got is whiskey, and a guy said, no, it's people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our biggest export is people. Mm-hmm. So we send our brilliant people elsewhere.
I was speaking to one of the professors up at St Andrews Uni who does a very specialist maths class that's very relevant just now for the large language models and learning and modelling. And every single one of them who graduate basically go to California. Yeah. So,
yeah, I know. And I mean, a bit like John Bennett, you know, if you want to do big things in your life, do you have to leave Scotland?
Yeah.
From a business, and the answer seems to be yes. Mm-hmm. I look at Commsworld, the size we are, and we are unusual for a Scottish SME to get to the scale we are. Very, very unusual. But I look down south, and we'd just be an average size business down there.
Yeah.
And with respect, with some companies that are not that good, with respect.
Yeah.
They're not a patch on what we do, but there's a scale there.
There's a scale. So back to Fluency, what was your first Fluency deal? What was the first money in the door with that gamble? We're going to do networks, point-to-point connections.
Well, what we did is, fortunately, we had lots of companies who already had contracts from Virgin, BT, Vodafone, right? Copper-based and not that great, in inverted commas. So what I did, I said to Charlie, go and build a network that we could genuinely do that would blow away our customers. I then went and spoke to the IT directors, maybe spoke to you guys, right? Spoke to data centers, motor groups, lawyers. And I said to them, if we could do that, would you be interested? Everyone said, yes, would grab it, but you could never do that. Right? It's just not possible.
Charlie had an alternative approach with us. He had on existed. Then built it as we went. But it worked out fine in the end. So.
That's it. It's a Trojan horse.
Yeah. We've been doing this for years.
Then, what about? Uh-huh. So we started doing that, and people started saying, hang on a minute, this is really clever, right? But the biggest break for us, the big break, was getting in the public sector. Because what's big in Scotland, and this is what I did, I spoke to Anne Budge, Anne Budge came in, Hearts. Anne come in and she spent 4 hours. Asked her if she could give me some advice. Spoke to Tom Flocker, who sadly is no longer with us at Capital Copiers. And I said to these guys, you guys have built SME businesses to a serious scale that's unusual, and you've done it the right way. You've not artificially bought 5 of your competitors to say we're bigger. You've done it, and you've also been successful at the high end. And if we're looking at 99% of companies in Scotland that are less than 50 people, that tiny 1%, even that 1%, the authority is not here. So where's the money? Public sector. What's the biggest spend in Scotland? Public sector, which again tells us something, right? So from a network point of view, I looked at all the councils and thought, these have got 300 and 400 sites. Hang on a minute. What if we could get in there? Now, I was told that is impossible because BT hold that. You will never, you don't even have the criteria to get in. You don't have the qualification, you don't have the experience. That is actually impossible. You cannot do it. But what I did, and this is probably the best thing, it's the single best thing I've ever done, is brought in Steve Langmead, who you know.
Yeah.
And I brought in Steve initially as an advisor, because what I said to Steve is, I want to grow my business. I'm bored and tired of the wee SME business. And if I can't, I'm just going to sell it off, right? Because we're just in class. We're wasting our time. And Steve was the head of Atos. He was the CEO for Capital Scotland. And I actually met Steve. A friend of mine knew him, so I got an intro. I met Steve and I said, this is what I want to do. Now, what I thought was, if Capita took us in under their arm, then they could be our Trojan horse to get into things because they could knock the doors down to get us a wee bit further. So I said to Steve, would Capita help us? Because I've tried for years and they say things, but they don't really help. And Steve said bluntly, no, they will never help you. Fact. And I just went, okay.
That's that.
Nice to meet you. Mm-hmm. And Steve said, hang on, Ricky, I've actually left Capita. Like I think it was the last day of his last month. I said, why is that? He says, I want to help companies in Scotland, SMEs grow. I genuinely want to help them because it can be done, but it's very difficult. So I brought Steve in as an advisor, again, against the wishes of my board. And Steve came on first an advisor, then an investor, then a non-exec. He's now the CEO of your business. Mm-hmm. And the boy is brilliant. I mean, he's absolutely, utterly brilliant.
Oh,
he's
also his finger in many pies, doesn't he? He has his finger in many pies.
He's a great man. And he's also really nice. I know it's so silly, but he's a really good-hearted man, but he's a strong guy. Uh-huh. And he really helped big style. You know?
You can trust him. That's the thing.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, we've shared a bit of information in the past, and at first when you're getting to know someone, you're thinking, Jesus, how's this going to work out? But no, a man of his word. And
I said to Steve, Steve said to me, actually, Ricky, Edinburgh's doing a big outsource. Edinburgh Council, they're going to say that they will be a user of technology, not a provider, and they're outsourcing. It was a £1 billion outsource they were doing. Outsource everything. He said, if we could get one of the big players to help us, as in we could they could back us, and Steve had more clout with these guys than I had, then maybe we could use that Trojan horse type of thing. And then what happened was City Fibre came along, and City Fibre says, we will put all the fibre in the ground for nothing to you. All you need to do is rent it. Dark fibre. No, Charlie. It was like, Charlie was like a baby in a suit. I mean, he was, honestly, it was like unbelievable. It was just, it couldn't contain itself. So they'll put dark fibre in the ground and just go away. And we'll do everything else. And they will build it under certain circumstances and you had to have scale, blah, blah, blah. So me and Steve were saying, hang on a minute, this takes away that £100 and it allows us to do real proper networks and global networks. So we had to prove that we could do it. So what we did is we went around a lot of our customers and we signed a contract to do a network with a 50-kilometre network that City Fibre would fund. They would do it. And we'd put our customers on it. And we said to our customers, we'll put you on, pay the same as you're paying now, but we'll put you on. Right? Need to sign a new, exactly the same. So, but we'll give you full fibre, gigabit connections. No, they couldn't believe it. They just say that's impossible. Anyway, we done that to prove the point that we could do it. And then we used CGI as the Trojan horse to get in Edinburgh. And then once we got in Edinburgh, we built a network that is astounding, absolutely astounding. And then we started doing them on our own, not CGI. So Edinburgh, Glasgow, Northumberland, Renfrewshire, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
More and more. And these contracts are 20 years, some of them.
Yeah. You can build off the back of a contract like that, can't you?
Yes.
You can.
Yes. And the contracts combined come to about, I think they're now over 200 million contract value.
The original Glasgow City Council deal, which you've now won direct, but when that came out in its original form, out through CGI, I remember at the time, you caused a big stir by winning that. The Virgin Medias, the BTs of this world, never thought there was a hope in hell of you guys winning that until it was too late.
Scottish Enterprise came in my office, right, Scottish Enterprise, and told me, you cannot win that. Do you realise? And I said, what's it got to do with you? But just being friendly, helpful. You cannot win that. It is impossible. Well, they told us the same with Edinburgh. Told us it was impossible. BT wrote to the council to say it would take 2.5 years. They were going to switch their network off because the contract came to an end in 10 months. We delivered it in 10 months. Now, that was really difficult, but we done it. And every single public sector we've done, everyone has stated better, nicer, friendlier, on time, on budget than they've ever dealt with before. Everyone. That
was the same time where obviously Swan came about as well, isn't it?
Yes.
And you were competing against what is the official public sector wide area network.
So I mean, we've won the big ones, and we've won more. I mean, obviously we're winning more and more that people are kind of not really noticing now, because before it was big news. Now it's they've won it again. And sometimes when we bid, others don't bid because the power that we've got and the technologies that we deliver are alien to a lot of companies. We put in a gigabit and turn it to 10 gigabit within 5 working days. In fact, we'll do it in 20 minutes. We've done it for the ICC. So they had 1 gigabit, and the IT director said, I'm struggling, we've got these global things that we're doing. And Charlie said, what do you want? 10 gigabit. All right, we'll give you it then. I said, Charlie, how long did it take? He said, it took me about half an hour. Now, BT could not have done that in a year.
No, because it was built on
because
legacy
of the
networks.
network. And it's not BT's fault. I mean, they've got the network that they had. Don't get me wrong, we've been a catalyst in pushing these guys along. So clearly they're doing more and more. And we work very closely with OpenReach. Do a lot of stuff with OpenReach now. So, we've been a company that's managed to disrupt and push others to do things that they would not probably have done.
So you then, you decided, when did you decide to start looking for a partial exit of the business?
Well,
and were you thinking about a partial exit, or were you just trying to raise money and grow the business at the time? Or
it was a bit of both. It was interesting because we had done 20 million, 4 million EBITDA, had 6 million in the bank, and did not have a penny debt, and we had built the best privately owned network in the UK, and didn't have a penny debt, and people thought that this is like a film, there's something wrong. And obviously, because we'd done that, clearly the signals go up. Everybody's knocking your door. I was getting phone calls like this all the time. People approaching, what to buy you, what to buy you, what to buy you. It was funny because I wasn't keen on selling as in a trade sale, because I thought, hang on a minute, we're just starting, It was then brought to my attention, well, why not bring in some private equity? Because some of the things you're going to do and the opportunities you've got, you might hit a brick wall, and you might find it more difficult to double back at that stage. And it might be this is the best thing to do. Now, remember John Bennett and Ian Blackford. So Ian's obviously best known as his S&P connections. But Ian was the managing director of Deutsche Equities, right? And John was in the same. So these guys, that was their world. Because they spoke about floating. We could actually float an aim with what we've got here, So we got a number of approaches. And at the time, I was keen on just, no, I'll leave it. We'll do it again at a later date. But Ian said to me, Ricky, that's fine. However, remember, Commsworld shareholding is through a lot of your existing employees who've been there for 20 odd years. If you turn around to them and say, 6 or 7 of them got 7-figure sums. If you turn around to them and say, you're actually not going to get anything because I'm going to do this, you might find they're a wee bit upset. Right? So you need to take that on board, And I thought, all right enough. So we ended up saying, okay, we'll go private equity, because then it's a 50-50. And we've doubled, obviously, we've went from 20 million, 4 million EBITDA to 40 million, 8 million EBITDA. So clearly it was the right thing to do. But also, even trying to sell it, there's no many companies that could bought it. Nobody in Scotland could have bought it.
No.
These figures. So I mean, it's funny because I was, we'll go ourselves, you know, and Graham said we'd go ourselves. But when Ian said to me, well, go and tell your pals that they're no him tell their wives they're not going to get millions of pounds. So I thought, okay, fair.
That was good of you. A lot of people would have seen that as a way to cut people out of a deal and move on with their life.
I know, and I mean, that's the one thing, I've never as an individual in Commsworld ever conned anybody, never. Mm-hmm. It just
that's not the way you cut.
That's from Dave. Dave was the same. Because people used to have a go at Dave because he was a copyware salesman at Xerox. Never. Not even for a penny.
Yeah.
We just wouldn't do it.
Well, that's worth its weight in gold. So when you raised the money, were you stayed on for a while as chairman or CEO, didn't you?
Yeah. Because of my health issues, and I've had a few others, nothing
on a similar scale.
Like cancer, right? But clearly, you know, you start looking at your own mortality, you know. And I was working like round the clock, which I loved, but obviously you need to kind of sit back and take. So what I'd said to LDC, who are, again, absolutely brilliant, look, I'm happy to stay in for a year, and it happened to be when we got the COVID year, 2020. But anyway, I'm happy to stay in for a year, but I've got other plans I want to do. I don't want, and I built a team. Yeah. You know, Steve Langmead, Bruce Strang. I mean, geez, I built a team that are miles better. I feel like Alec Ferguson has built a team, and I shouldn't be on the park. Do you know what I mean? I shouldn't be on that park. So in LDC, we're fine. John Trevor, who's chairman, because what I did is I was determined to bring in some ex-Thus guys, because I loved Thus. I thought Thus were Scottish Telecom Thus. I thought they were an amazing company. So John was on the board there, who's now our chairman. Bruce Strang. There's lots. There's a stack of guys. There must be half a dozen more senior that were in Thus. Because I also thought these guys have a determination to right or wrong. Yeah. Because what happened to them, I thought was a disgrace, you know. And they have got that unfinished business determination. So my point was, and I said to LDC, I brought a team that, to be blunt, is better than me. I'm an investor in this business, right? I'm happy to stay on boards on it. Of course I am, right? And to help and influence, of course I am. But I need to, you know, with health issues I've had and other things, I need to take a bit of time out. I have to. And they were fine, you know. Great, Ricky, you know.
So you've obviously built this over a 30-year period. You've done a deal. The next day, once that deal's done, is it a good feeling, a funny feeling, or is it just business as normal? Is it?
It's a strange feeling, right? Because what I did was, when we done the deal, it got signed off like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, whatever it was. And I had to phone each individual person to tell them, you're going to get money in your bank account tomorrow morning off X. So 2 of the guys burst out crying on the phone because they didn't know. You know, we didn't tell them why they were going to sell at the value it was sold. So 2 of the guys just burst out crying. Couldn't talk. Others just went completely silent. What?
That must be a nice telephone call to make.
It is. It is, because there's guys that have worked here still there. Yeah. There's guys that have worked here for 20 or 30 years, obviously. Some of them. So it's a good thing. Do you know what I mean? It's a good thing. I mean, I'm not driven by money, right? You know what I mean? I still stay in the same house today. Do you know what I mean? I'm not bought a helicopter or, do you know what I mean? Or got some castle.
You're not putting any money into Hibs? No.
No. I'm not putting any money in the football club. So I've learnt that. So obviously I'm doing reinvestments here and there, and I help my son with Simpson Marwick, you know, the state agency and stuff like that. But when I said to my wife, when we got the money, actually I phoned my wife. She's one of the ones that started crying on the phone because she didn't know. No. So she's like, what? But I said to her, like, do you want to move and get a new house? She said, this is my home. I'm not wanting to move. So I want to move there. So it is strange. But on day 1, on day 2, all these guys are still back working. Most of them are still there today doing the same thing as, well, doing actually more now, the way the business is going.
So what, if, I'll try and get a bit of free advice off you here. If you were looking for, to raise money with somebody like LDC or BDO, one of these guys, what advice would you give? You
need to be careful, I think, You need to be honest. You have to understand that if you say A, B, and C, and I lift the covers, and it's no A, B, and C. Do you know what I mean? So you need to be honest with yourself. But these...
And they've seen it all before. They've seen every fudge and every...
They know every trick in the book. I mean, we done a thing where they could pull back money if it was more than 47,000 out, and I think it was 22,000 or something out, when they got Deloitte's and everybody had to do all that, whatever they do, join. And it took something like 10 months or a year. I mean, it was unbelievable. I think what you have to watch is that you don't take your eye off the ball. And your business, because you're spending all your time looking away, your business is not doing the things that you're projecting to do. You also need to be careful that you don't project things that really you're hopeful, but you don't think will happen. Yeah. You need to be careful. And also they look at, like I said, they look at typically 10 million, growing at 20% with 1 million EBITDA. That's typically their sweet spot for these type of guys. But what I would say is that our experience with LDC has been nothing short of brilliant. Now, you could argue that we're an easy one for them because clearly going like that, we've not had to buy anything. We spoke to them about acquiring businesses. They're like, well, there's money there, but why?
No, you're doing fine.
You're just bringing a risk, like unless it's something really remarkable that, and we might do something in England. Clearly, we won Northumberland. We've won Nottingham University. So again, going head to head with the big boys, we're winning things, and our reputation's growing. So who knows? Is move further south whether we'll do anything. But private equity, you are kind of naked.
Aye.
That's the point, And
that's a good way to look at it, isn't it? You're standing.
You can't hide it. It's like, do you know what I mean? You can't.
There are horror stories out there. I mean, we were speaking about it. Paul Hutchison, who very kindly came on, he was one of the first guests in the podcast and was very honest about his experiences with Hutchison Network. They went from taking I think it was a £3 million investment, and a year to the day they were gone.
I know, and well, I think the world with Paul. I think the way he was treated, I think he was treated like a pawn in a game, to be honest. And I've seen it in the past where manufacturers persuade you to go and, spend this and that to become the biggest goal, whatever it may be, in a market that's really not quite there. And then what all goes wrong, they move on to somebody else,
How do you protect yourself out? Because that's where you see the brutal side of private equity money, because they will make these tough calls to let businesses go under. They won't put bad money after bad. How can, if you do take money, how can you protect yourself from that? Is it all about cash at that point?
I know it sounds silly. Paul's a prime example. At the end of the day, business is all about money, isn't it? And I'm not money orientated, like I mentioned, and I kind of get frustrated because it's like more and more and more. Like I just don't like that world. But it's the reality, And what you need to do is you need to make sure that the things that you're doing, that you're confident with, you have to be careful, because you can't be like a gambler chasing your debts.
Yeah.
You need to be very, very careful, and you need to be honest with yourself to make sure that the deal you agree is something that you are genuinely comfortable, and you're not thinking, well, the money I've taken and now everything will go to the wall, that's life. I don't know, a fine balance,
I think you've also got to not give these companies a reason to look at the deal again, isn't it? If you have to go back and ask for help, that's not a good position to be in, is it?
No, it's not. It's not.
I need more money to survive, or do you? Yeah,
that's right. You will keep funding your losses. Yeah, that will not happen. So you need to be strong. So, for example, if the business needs to shrink, well, you need to shrink it. So you do need to make we've done that with Commsworld in the past. Unfortunately, Graham St. John, who was our CFO, now one of my best pals, who's an investor in Simpson Markham, and Graham was Ernst & Young CA, and he run the turnaround team for the Clydesdale Bank in Scotland. That's
some job, isn't it? That's get your coats and get out. Aye.
He was head of the turnaround team for Bank of Australia, looking after big names that we all know. And Graham, without Graham, we wouldn't have survived. I mean, he is. I mean, Steve's been the one that's helped us grow. Graham's been the one that's stopped us from disappearing.
I don't know him. Is he a miserable FD?
No.
No, no, I'd always expect
No,
these
like,
FDs
he's a
to be...
Motherwell fan, so he should be miserable, to be honest. But no, he is commercially he's unusual. He's commercially very sharp. He'll go and he'll pitch. He is a brilliant boy. Oh, he's better than me. He is very, very clever. And Malcolm McPherson was my chairman. He's chairman of Hibs now. Malcolm was my chairman for 14, 15 years. And Malcolm brought Graham in because Malcolm said, Ricky, if you don't have a proper, and I mean a proper guy, the ambition you've got about growing and raising money, no, I'm talking about a real one, Ricky, not I'm talking about real. And I said to Malcolm, go and help me. And Malcolm brought him in. And he was easily the single most important person we ever signed in Commsworld by miles. Because when we looked at doing the public sector stuff, he would do all the financial modelling. Right? He'd go and pitch. He would go and do it. Well, then I'll go with you. And I'll sit with them and I'll show them. I mean, an absolute brilliant boy. So I have been fortunate in Commsworld that I've managed to bring these guys in who were way bigger than Commsworld needed. But what I was doing is selling them a dream. I mean, I would sell the story. I mean, that's what I would do. I would sell the story to customers and to, became my colleagues, bringing them in and getting them part of it. We can really do this. Can be done. You know what I mean?
You spoke very highly of the team you built around them. So Steve Langmees, Charlie, Bruce, the FD,
John
Dave,
McDermott. John McDermott, who was at this, brilliant.
You've spoke very highly around these people, but what made you succeed? So clearly, there's no Commsworld without you. So what did you bring to it?
Well,
vision and drive.
I got to, you know what I used to do, right? I used to go to Entrepreneurial Exchange, right? I'd go to the round tables, Jim McCall, Chris van der Kuyl, all these guys. I'd go to these things all the time. And they would just build my confidence up. You can't do this. I remember sitting around table with Jim McCall, and you'll love this, right? Jim said, right, growing. It was an evening with Jim McCall, right? A dozen people with 3 or 4 of my customers around the table. And Jim says, right, Ricky, come on then. How are you going to grow? What's stopping you? And I said, well, unfortunately, my biggest competitor is BT. They dominate the world. I can't grow. And he went, wow, what an opportunity. And I went, no. And I repeated
Did you hear it?
And he went, but everybody hates them. Oh, you're halfway there. Every customer hates them. You just need to figure it away. And I'd get that with Chris van der Kuyl, Brian Williamson, others, a lot of the guys, and Tom Flocker, where they would say, you can. Who said you can? You can. So I'd go back into the office with Graham and all that and say, we can do it. And they're like, you've been to one of these things again. Seriously, you've been to Entrepreneurship Exchange thing last night, Ricky. So I got this drive, and then I started to read stuff and say, well, why not?
Yeah.
And I'd look at my team. Honestly, I'd look at my team and go, wow, look at these guys.
Sometimes you need to get out your own way, don't you?
Yeah.
Your own doubts and self-doubts can make you do nothing.
Well, that's the thing. And I've told my son, I tell people, if you want to succeed, you have to be open to try things that might fail.
Yeah.
Right? You have to. And I'm not going into stuff now, but Commsworld's failed in a number of things we've tried over the years, but nothing.
So on that, that's a nice segue, because I always ask this when I've got kind of business leaders in, what's the most valuable mistake? Because I've made some belters hourly, it seems sometimes, but when you look back, sometimes there's a lot of value in that mistake, that error, that disaster that you couldn't sleep for a month with.
The biggest mistakes that I made was on the financial side, not realising the real value of cash in a business, and building a cost base too great. But fortunately, I had Graham who would say, Ricky, we need to stop this. Do you know what I mean? Because I would go, service, right? We'll be brilliant. Graham would go, that's fine, but we cannot, Ricky, put the business to the wall because you want to have double the service people that somebody else would have. And you want to give, 100%, maybe you can only give 95% service, Ricky, or he'll not be there to give service. So that was a weakness that I had historically, going back. And not clicking, not really realising what the impact of the financials in the business. That
was good you had him. But were you close at any point in terms of...
Yeah. Yeah. At one stage, even with Graham trying to help me, at one stage, and I'm not making this up, we were a day away from getting merged into another business that the bank preferred, for want of a better term, and they were persuading us. And Graham said, Ricky, the bank are controlling us to a degree. What they're offering, it was to merge with an IT company, right? Who I disappeared in 2-3 years later, and I was really against it. And I was out at Hibs thing, so I was at Hibs thing one night, and Ian Blackford, Ian said, "How's Ricky?" And at that time, I'm really friendly with Ian, but at that time, I knew Ian because he Hibs, right? Because he loves Hibs, so we're talking. Anyway, he said to me, "How's things?" I said, "Fine." "How's things?" I just said, "Fine." He went, "No, eh?" I says, "What do you mean, no?" I can tell, Ricky. "What's wrong?" I says, "Ian, I can't talk about it. We've signed NDAs and we're days away." He went, "What do you mean you've signed NDAs and you're days away? Is it something you like and something you want?" I said, "No, but I've got a little option." And Ian said, "Is it a financial problem you've got?" I said, "Aye." He says, "Right, I'll give you $500,000 or $1 million. What do you want? What do you need? Is $500,000 enough? $1 million?" And I said, $500,000 be fine, Ian. "Right, I'll do that. When's your next board meeting?" I said, 2 days' time. We're meant to sign it off. He says, "Right, when you get that board meeting, you've got a new financial advisor. I'm coming on your board, investor, and he's giving you $500,000.
Jesus.
And Ian come and done that.
Just like that.
And he brought John Bent in.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Ian and John's obviously a Rangers man. Ian's obviously an Independence guy. And they're best pals. And they disagree, clearly. Because John thinks there should be a statue of Margaret Thatcher in Glasgow. Genuinely, he does. I said, "John, it's impossible." But anyway, and Ian...
It is impossible.
Yeah. Anyway, because he thinks Thatcher changed the world for the better, in his opinion. Ian clearly thinks opposite, but they're best pals. And the two of them came in. And I asked Ian later on why. He says, "Because I trust you. But I also know the market, Ricky. I understand that market. And that there's an opportunity in that market. And I've met you enough now where I trust you and people talk highly of you. And it's something, so I'll back you." And he did. He came in.
It's amazing, just a chance.
And that was... Now,
so Hibs are good for something.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, see if we had went to another company and merged, it would have probably been a good success. It wouldn't have been a Commsworld today.
Yeah.
But it would have been successful.
Yeah.
It would have been successful.
It would have been.
Because we'd have dominated it, to be honest.
So what's next for Commsworld then?
Well, Commsworld's grow. We're winning more and more in the public sector areas. We're winning more in education, universities, things like that. We're getting invited into a lot of things now. So from Commsworld's point of view, it's, I was going to say freewheel, and that's no fair, but the growth it's just compounding. We are getting invited into things that in the past, if we're knocking the door, they wouldn't answer the door. So it'll be grow. From Commsworld's point of view. Now, I'm on the board. I'm vice chairman. I'm still the largest individual shareholder. And I get involved in everything that I need to get involved in. But like I say, with the team that I've got there, I don't need to go in the park.
Do you see yourself leaving at any point?
It depends on the future of the business.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly we've got private equity, so private equity want to come in and go out. That's how they work. It's been raised with Commsworld that we could float the business on AIM, and lots of other things. So there's a lot of things that we need to consider. But currently there's no pressures. I mean, LDC, zero pressure on Exxon. They just think it's going really well. Which
is unusual because they normally have a fixed set of time and they want out, they want to recycle and go.
Well, one of the reasons that LDC interested us is they don't have that same criteria, but it's fixed. Whereas other ones they spoke to have this, they have it fixed.
Yeah, 5 years
So
gone.
even if in a year's time, it doesn't matter. They're out, and they have a model that they work. And again, that's something that people need to watch it if they're using that. Because where are you coming in that model? Because they build a group of companies. Where are you when the whole thing goes,
Yeah.
LDC, they don't, well, they've never ever been like that. They've been very nice, friendly, open. I mean, we're probably easy for them, to be fair. It's, because obviously it's
compared to some of the car crashes they get involved in.
Correct. So when people ask, my experience is really good, but then you'd maybe be better asking people that have had a rougher ride with their business than me,
I'm sure they've got teeth. I'm sure if it...
Oh, they will have.
Yeah.
These guys, money.
Yeah.
That's it, innit?
But I think you went into it with the right attitude about that naked feeling. Be honest, be transparent.
Well, that's the big thing.
Yeah.
You have to be completely, like, ridiculously open.
Yeah.
Because why try to get caught later on? It doesn't make sense.
Even
if it chases them away.
Aye. Then it. Yeah. They're better getting chased away than living with it. It wouldn't be a podcast with me if I didn't mention the word AI. People around me are sick, fed up of it. How do you think AI is going to impact Commsworld as a business?
I think AI will have a bigger impact than the internet had when it first came out.
I agree. Yeah.
And that is saying something, right? Because I remember the internet, Paul Moore, who's just retired actually with Commsworld, Paul Moore was a tech, one of our suppliers. And Paul Moore came in 95, 96 and said to me, Ricky, do you know what the internet is? No. It's the following. All right. Do you want to go on it? I said, nope. Do you want me to put? I said, you do what you want, Paul. So Paul put us on the internet, do you know what I mean? And we were getting emails. My wife used to, this is how bad it was. And how things have changed. My wife used to print out email, because we got an email now and again. So she should print an email and stick it in the pigeonhole for me and Davey. We'd write on it and she'd reply. Right? She'd come in with my wee daughter. And then eventually she said, there's too many of these emails coming in, you know. But I actually think that AI genuinely, I mean, my son is immersed in it, absolutely immersed. And he's shown me things that are just mind-blowing. So I think in the next year, and I mean the next year, AI will have a bigger impact than the internet had when it came out. I worry, in inverted commas, for transactional type businesses. So legal firms, things like that, where it's transactional stuff. Even the property, I mean, I'm an investor in Simpson Marwick, and I look at the way that the property sector goes in values and all this, and I thought AI will strip that to bits. Mm-hmm. It will strip it. It will answer it in a second, and a lot of people will lose jobs.
AI is making knowledge cheap.
Oh, medical, financial, legal, all these professionals, they will get absolutely decimated. The ones that jump in quick and actually get on with it, they'll come out well. The ones that sit back going, "I'll never hit me," I will. The genie's out the bottle. It's not going back in.
And the good thing, we are involved at the sharp end of AI. Yeah. The good thing for Commsworld is they move a lot of data very quickly.
Yes. Well, we move more data. John Trower, our chairman, was telling me the last board meeting, we carry more data across Scotland on all the governments than anybody else.
Well, so you'll be in a good position to help them deliver their AI strategies.
Yes.
So what's next for you, Ricky?
Well, I'm 63, which I can't eat. It's really weird because I'm like, my son's 35. He keeps going, "Dad, you're 63." Do you know what I mean? Do
you not feel it?
I didn't know. No. I still feel 23. Seriously. So, I mean, I've done a few investments in different things. Obviously, done investment with my son with Simpson Marwick, which I help. But again, I have no executive engagement. I keep it the way because they don't need me again. You know, they're very, very clever. And I spend time with my wife, my grandkids. I've got 3 grandkids who I just absolutely adore. So me and my wife take them places all the time. And we do a lot more travelling because obviously with Commsworld, I mean, although I was head of Commsworld, I got the same holidays as everybody else. So my wife says, "Ricky, can we go 4 days to so-and-so?" I'd say, "I've only got 3 days holiday."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And she's like, "Sorry? Well, we've only got 3 days holiday. Or I'll have to take a day off my wages." Do you know what I mean? She's like, "Really?" Aye. So I don't have that now. So we've got freedom now. We can do things. And I've travelled a lot. And that's, so I want to keep my hand in on a few things that invest in and help and advise. And advise a couple of other companies just through friendship. Helping them, you know, companies that I've known over the years in the technology space.
Well, Ricky, it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you, as always, and thanks for the conversations over the years.
They've
always been useful in the help in the early days of Data Vita, so thank you very much, and thanks for coming on, my friend.
Thanks, pal. Thank you.
All right, cheers.